There's not enough coffee in the world to help us understand the 2023 Green Bay Packers, but we're going to attempt to. To my Packer unit out there, it's discussion time. And if you're not a Packer fan, well, feel free to listen in on the conversation. It's going to get spicy. Jaire Alexander, suspended. Suspended with the season on the line. Sunday Night Football. Going up against Justin Jefferson, who just set another record this past Sunday, by the way. I believe the most reception yards within the first 4 years of a receiver's career. Something like that. So this dude's setting records. So we're already going to have our hands full. So let's sit out our starter that's going to match up with him. Now, I understand what Jaire Alexander did last Sunday. Completely unacceptable. His response to it was almost a mockery of the deed that he did wrong. I get it. We'll go over what he said, what he did. We'll talk about a possible punishment. I get it. But in Coach LaFleur's words, he said there are standards and practices that need to be met. And when they're not, well, they need to be held accountable. Awesome. I love that rule of law in the Green Bay Packers organization. Let's hold those same standards and practices to everybody. Joe Barry, the defensive coordinator, right? There's standards and practices and measurements that need to be met and held up to that standard, or you got to be held accountable, right? That's what Coach LaFleur said. Joe Barry is doing the same things that the Packers organization is claiming Jaire Alexander did. Actions that are detrimental to the team. Joe Barry, every single Sunday that he brings his defense, a Joe Barry defense, to the football field, Joe Barry is committing actions that are detrimental to the Green Bay Packers team and organization. Joe Barry is detrimental to the Green Bay Packers. Joe Barry was not fired this week. They spent all their time trying to find out. It took days, right? We just found out yesterday, late yesterday, that Jaire Alexander is suspended. That's what they're taking their time up on. Not trying to figure out how can we make our defense better. They're thinking of ways that we could possibly implode it even more. Let's take out our starters, especially against Justin Jefferson Sunday night. Let's take out Jaire Alexander. Let's keep Joe Barry as the head man, the lead man in charge of that defense. I think we all know, as Green Bay Packer fans, even if you're not a Packer fan, right? If you're not a Packer fan, you would know that a Joe Barry defense is the last thing you want or need going into Minnesota Sunday night with the season on the line. We all know that. This isn't one of those situations where you say, well, it's so late in the season, BC. What do you expect them to do? Just change coaches this late into the season? What good is that going to do? First of all, yeah, it's exactly what I'm saying. Change coaches instantly. Like that. Like I Dream a Genie. Close your eyes, cross the arms, blink 3 times, make a wish. I don't care who the heck you put in there as defensive coordinator head. I don't even care. I don't care if you put in Steve Urkel, Topanga, a freaking Teletubby, a Pokemon. I don't care. I don't care if a Charmander is walking the sidelines, calling all the defensive plays. Anybody at this point. Anybody. We talk about sparks. Russell Wilson just got benched. Russell Wilson. Peyton for the Broncos head coach says, no, you're sitting down. He never liked Russell Wilson anyway. He sits him down. And you know what his excuse was? We're just looking for a spark, he says. So we're going to sit down our starting quarterback. Little DeVito for the New York Football Giants got benched after one half last week. You know why? Coach Brian Dable for the New York Giants said we were looking for a spark. That's the new excuse in the NFL, right? We just want a spark, and I get it. Trust me. Sometimes you gotta find the spark. That's why head coaches always get fired. Good head coaches a lot of the times. But they lost the team. They're good. They just lost the team. They have to go because you need a spark. Okay, I don't care if there's 1 game left in the season, 2 games, 4 games. You make the call that needs to be made because it's in the best interest of your team. If the facts weren't there and we were just blabbing over nothing, then okay, it wouldn't make sense. But the facts are smacking everybody upside the dome piece in the NFL. Joe Barry's defense is giving up nearly 400 yards a game, and in most cases, actually 400 plus yards. A Joe Barry defense the last 3 weeks, you guys ready for this, got diced up by Tom DeVito. Tom DeVito, the Green Bay Packers made Tom DeVito look like Tom Brady out there. About to win an 8th Super Bowl. Tom Brady. No, it's Tom DeVito. The same guy he's no longer a starter in the NFL. The Giant game was just a few weeks ago. Tom DeVito is already a backup again. He got benched last week. The Packers single-handedly catapulted Tom DeVito to stardom because we made him look like Tom Brady. Diced us up. Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield has been in the league how many years? Several. That Packer game catapulted Baker Mayfield into Joe Montana conversations, you would think. Baker Mayfield dicing us up. Bryce Young last week. Bryce Young. For the Panthers. We're still trying to figure out what a Bryce Young is. I still don't know what a Bryce Young is. But I know he diced us up last week. Doesn't matter who's in there. It doesn't even matter who you put in there. They're going to. It could be a 16th string quarterback. It doesn't even matter. This defense is going to make them look like a Super Bowl winning performing quarterback. That's not good. If this was just 1 game every now and again, okay, we can chalk it up as just a bad day, right? Bad day at the office. We all have them. Bad day at the office. I don't care if you're flipping burgers at McDonald's, stocking the shelves over at Costco, you're going into, maybe you're a banker, right? And you accidentally gave somebody an extra $400,000 loan. Oops. Tell that to your boss. You got a bad day at the office. You're a pilot. You landed at the wrong airport on the complete opposite coast. Oops. We're going to be slightly delayed today, folks. Bad day at the office. I get it. Football. Bad week of preparation, or just the wrong preparation, the wrong game plan, and then your players didn't show up. It happens. I get it. If this was just a Joe Barry botch every now and again, cool. Still unacceptable in my book, but all right? You can chalk it up to the youngest team in the NFL, BC. They're a young team, man. It's growing pains, BC. I get it. But when the fundamentals are not there, that starts at the top. And that's what you're seeing, right? If you watch these games, second one to the final second, you know that the fundamentals of football is what's thrown to the wayside, right? If you just played Pee-wee football, you know that. Even if you never played football, if you just watched enough, I'm pretty sure you would know the fundamentals. The fundamentals are imploding on this team. That's when you know you've lost the team. Or you just have a really bad coach. I refuse to believe that Joe Barry is that bad. But this year, he's among the worst. 400 yards are given up on the average by a Joe Barry defense. It doesn't matter what quarterback you are, how far down the line you are, 3rd string, 4th string, they're dicing us up. A Joe Barry defense going into Sunday Night Football with the season on the line against the Vikings is the worst possible scenario. So Joe Barry would have to be fired. This should have been done before Christmas. It just wasn't. They just didn't want to do it. Be like, there's other issues. We think we can pull it together. No, what they thought, I'll tell you what happened. We were going to Carolina. We were going to take on the Panthers. So they said, okay, they're a 2-12 team. We can chop them up, and then everybody will relax. RELAX. Aaron Rodgers taught us to do that in Green Bay, right? We'll relax. We'll say, we're back. Whew, we got rid of that freaking little 3-week skid, and we're back. We beat the Panthers. They were hoping we were going to just whoop them, right? It's the Panthers. We were going to whoop them. It's Bryce Young. Defense is going to hold up. Jordan Love will have a career day. And then everybody will just go, okay, nobody needs to be fired. We're good. Let's go to Minnesota. No, that's not what happened. The Panthers not almost beat us. They were going to beat us. They were 1 second away. If Bryce Young got that spike off, that was a field goal. That was tying the game. We were going to overtime. This team has shown you they cannot do anything in 4 quarters. You give them another quarter, they're going to implode worse than we've ever seen. If we can't do anything right in 4 quarters, giving us a 5th quarter will embarrass us even more. This team has not shown you they can do anything in 5 quarters. So no, we were going to lose that. They were 1 second away. They didn't get the spike off. 33-30 against the Panthers. 400 yards our defense gave up against the Panthers and Bryce Young. That's a problem. Right? If there's any Packer fan trying to tell you different, they're lying to you, or they just don't know football, sadly. That is bad. Again, if it was once in a while, still unacceptable. That's too many bad days at the office when you only have a 17-play-week schedule. But when you're this bad every single week, the Giants, with a losing record and a Tom DeVito, like a fourth-string quarterback, whatever he was, chopping us up, 400 yards. When that is happening, right, the Giants are whooping us. And then the next week, the Buccaneers with Baked Goods Mayfield is chopping us up. And the Buccaneers, who are in the race with us, in the hunt, in the bubble of the playoffs, Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers are whooping us. And then the following week, the 2-12 Carolina Panthers, 400 yards, dicing us up, nearly beating us. 1 spike away from beating us. You guys seeing a trend here. It's every single week, and we just seem to be getting worse and worse and worse, right? If we were progressing, cool, right? Bad days at the office, bad weeks. But, man, we're getting a little better here, BC. I think the defense is improving here and here. Do you know what the Packers did? LaFleur? Do you know what they did after the game, the press conference? Instead of saying how, wow, we almost gave up the game to the Carolina Panthers. We were 1 snap away. Do you know what they said? Well, I think we played pretty good, a better defense in the first 3 quarters. And, of course, at the end of the game, the last quarter and a half, it got away from us, and they scored 17. But we're looking at the positives, the pluses. There was no What are you talking about? What are you possibly talking about? Even before they scored the 2 touchdowns in the 4th. It was 30-16, right? So we were down, they were down a couple of touchdowns. So that was still above their average, which is 12 points a game. The last 9 games, the Carolina Panthers are averaging roughly 12 points. Well, in the 3rd quarter, they were already above that. We already allowed 16. And then in the 4th, they just said, hold my coffee, and scored a touchdown, and then another touchdown, and it's tied. And you're talking about positives. Positives. Joe Barry is still the defensive coordinator. They should have done the job before Christmas. They failed to do that. Then you have to do it either on Christmas. You have to do it on Christmas, basically, right? You had to do Monday morning. You had to go in there and I don't care if it's a day off, Christmas, Monday. You got to do the job because the Vikings versus the Packers is Sunday night. The season's on the line. You guys understand it's the same record, and we're both fighting for that last playoff spot. And by the way, that's not even a given. Because right now, the Seahawks, I believe the Rams, and I believe the Buccaneers are before us. That's why that Buccaneer contest was so big. We couldn't beat Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. So if you go down to a tiebreaker, they already whooped us. The Buccaneers would get the spot. And the Seahawks, those pesky Seahawks, they just keep winning. If they would just lose one game, man, we would have another spot. We'd at least be in the 8th position, one spot away. A win over the Vikings could put us in that final 7th spot for the playoffs. That's why this game is so crucial. Joe Barry, you say, but BC, you can't get any worse. You might as well stick with what you got. If you try to change everything now, that's a definite L. No, a definite L is a Joe Barry defense going into Minnesota. They will have to play perfectly. And that's what we're hoping for. Anybody that's sporting these G's on Sunday night especially, we're hoping that that's what they do. Play a perfect, pristine game. We're hoping for the W somehow. There's going to have to be miracles. People are going to have to be praying and wishing and doing all that magical shit. They got to do it. Because I'm telling you right now, that's the only way the Packers are walking out with a W. Not impossible. We're all going to be hoping for the best. But they're putting themselves in a position where it's almost becoming, if not already, impossible to win. The Joe Barry defense that we've seen most of this season and the last month especially is going into Minnesota. And there's fans out there that are going to try to sell you that that's the best possible decision that can be made. Just keep Barry in there and make a decision in the offseason. No, that's not what you do. He lost the team. The defense is acting a fool. They clearly don't give a damn about Barry. Their actions and mannerisms on the field, the confusion, the lack of fundamentals. Either they truly don't give a damn about Barry, or Barry is that bad or has become that bad at his job. It's one of the two or both of the two. Maybe it's a concoction. But there's no damn way that a Joe Barry defense should be or even deserves to be going to Minnesota Sunday night. That's the first big issue that we as Packer Nation, I like to call the Packer unit, that's what we have to deal with first and foremost. Joe Barry is still our DC. He's still the defensive coordinator, and he hasn't earned that right. His actions have been detrimental to the team. But I guess that works for Jaire Alexander, right? While Joe Barry is not fired, and he should have been off the team, in any job, if you are that bad, you would be removed. If your job is a cook and you show up every day to the local Olive Garden or Applebee's, Houlihan's, and you burn everything, you almost burn down the joint, everybody's burger is coming out like a hockey puck, eventually you're fired. You can only get so many warnings. If you're stocking shelves and you're putting the milk next to the cereal and not putting it in the fridge, it's just there's the Fruit Loops and there's the milk. Well, the milk probably shouldn't be on the regular shelf, and you're told this time and time again, after a while, you're going to get fired. If you are that pilot and you keep going to the wrong airport, you're supposed to go from Orlando to Los Angeles. Why are you in Seattle? Or Orlando to Los Angeles, and somehow you're in New Hampshire? You're going to get fired. Probably not a good pilot. If you are a defensive coordinator in the NFL and you're this bad for this many weeks, you got to get fired. Why are they an exception to the rule? Why do people defend this shit? Nah, man, no. It'll get better, man. Growing pains. This is worse. The fundamentals are out the window, and he's lost the team. And the season's somehow, as bad as we've played, somehow because other teams, thankfully, played really bad this year, we have a chance. Even with a W over Vikings, we still might not make the playoff, but we have a chance. And with the season on the line Sunday night, they said, no, Joe Barry, we're going to keep him. And then they took out our star, our defensive star, Jaire Alexander. They suspended him. Now, for those that don't know what happened, listen to this. Again, there's not enough coffee in the world, so I don't know what I'm trying to accomplish there. But to try to make sense of this Packer team. So Jaire Alexander, last Sunday, he runs out on the field before the game, and he makes himself a captain. For those that don't know, every week there's designated captains. Sometimes it's the same captain that you see every week. Sometimes they add some people in. Packers coach LaFleur recently stated that, I think it was last year even, they would vote on the captains for the week. Pretty cool. So every team has different ways to designate the captains, but you have to know ahead of time that so you don't look like a fool and you know what's going on. Like, are we going to receive? Are we going to kick off? You have to know, right? The captain has a responsibility out there, and you're honoring the team, right? So he took the entire team, the game, and he made it about himself. And he said that in a post-game interview. When asked why he did it, he said, yeah, I want to be on defense. It was almost like a mockery. Like he was making a joke out of it all. But I guess that's just his personality. He's laid back and all that stuff. So he's like, yeah, I always want to be on defense. I always want to be on defense. So I said, yeah. And everybody, this is a quote. He said, everybody was laughing at me out there, the other captains, because they thought this was probably a joke. Like, what are you doing, bro? Like, you're not even supposed to be out here. And he's like, everybody was laughing at me, but I'm like, what are you all laughing at? Like, I want to be on defense. So I said defense. This isn't about you. This isn't the Green Bay Alexanders, the Green Bay Jaires. It's the Packers, brah. So trust me, I'm not happy with this dude at all. That was completely stupid. And his excuse was he's from the area and he doesn't think that Coach LaFleur knew that. Okay, we'll discuss it with him. And if you discussed it and he still said no, then you can't go out there. There's reasons. You two know it. You had the conversation. But you can't take it upon yourself to run out on the field and then make a call like that without talking to your coach. So yeah, I agree. Those are actions detrimental to the team, and there needs to be a heavy fine and, okay, suspension possibly. And you designate that suspension. For instance, in baseball, for the longest time, I think they still do it. When you're suspended, you can actually appeal that, and during the appeal, on most suspensions anyway, maybe there's some where you have to take off until it's further reviewed. But on a lot of suspensions, you get to stick around. You're going to get suspended. You know that. You've already been levied the fine. 5 games, 10 games, 25 games. Who knows? But you get to. You get to keep showing up and do all the games that you want to be there for. And then you pick exactly the perfect time frame where you get to serve your suspension. Well, listen. The Vikings, Sunday night, against Justin Jefferson. I don't know. I don't know. This is one of those wild situations. I totally get it. BC, it doesn't even matter. If you're going to suspend them, the only way to make it matter, to prove the point you're trying to make as an organization, is to do it. And it doesn't matter when. Because if you let him get away with the Viking game, then he's just going to say, that's how important I am to the team. I can do anything. And they're just going to sit me out with a 2-12 Carolina game, which you can't even do that with this team because we'll lose. But that's what I understand that point of the conversation. I do. But what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? If you're going to claim one thing for one individual, you better hold that same energy throughout the organization. If this dude is being suspended, have the balls to fire Joe Barry, because his work that he has done for the Packers this year, detrimental to the team. So if you're going to make these bold calls on your players, make the bold calls where it starts, the top of the heap, Joe Barry. Because Joe Barry's allowing his defense to make this staff look like fools. Because LaFleur had to suspend Jaire Alexander. LaFleur and the whole coaching staff look like idiots. This dude went rogue. Went onto the field, made the call, almost cost them the call. LaFleur looked like an absolute idiot that has no control over his team. Joe Barry's already been in that position. He's like a groundhog, probably already has his permanent hole. He comes up and down every now and again to see if the coast is clear and the dust is settled and people have stopped talking about how bad he is at defensive coordinating the NFL as a defensive coordinator in the NFL. So he pops up and down like a groundhog. But LaFleur is about to make that hole right next to him and keep popping up. He's about to be a resident groundhog with Joe Barry. Because this team is making this staff look like idiots. And at what point do we say, well, it's the staff that's doing it to themselves? It starts at the top. When things are going this bad for this long, when fundamentals have been out the window, when the littlest things are imploding, the littlest things that you learn in Pee Wee are imploding, it starts at the top and it trickles down. So they suspended Alexander on the biggest game of the season, Sunday Night Football. Forget the stage that they're on. Sunday Night Football, New Year's Eve. But against Justin Jefferson with the season on the line. You lose this game, you're out. Like, for good. Like mathematically, they're done, right? We all know that. This is it. Even if we win, there's a good chance we don't make it. Because the Buccaneers and then the Seahawks, they got one up on us. And we did that to ourselves. So they suspended Alexander. I'm not even saying that's the wrong call. It just doesn't sit well when Barry gets to keep his job, but then you're suspending Alexander. I just don't feel like the same energy is being put in the areas it should. This is what LaFleur said, actually. I'm going to let you guys listen in. Hopefully you can hear this. He was asked about the decision this is Coach LaFleur, about the decision made to suspend Jaire Alexander.
Yeah, that's something that we made together, and it's unfortunate that, we're at that juncture, and felt like it was in the best interest long term for our team.
Pause. So they made that decision because they felt it was in the best interest long term for the team. Getting rid of Joe Barry right now is good long term.
For Jaire, and certainly it was a tough decision, especially, kind of where we're at right now, and, one we don't take lightly, but there's standards that we're all held accountable for, and when they're not met, unfortunately, sometimes you got to take some drastic measures.
There's standards that need to be met, and when they're not met, you got to take drastic measures. Sorry, Joe Barry, you gots to go, right? I mean, that's what we're saying. Standards need to be met. I agree with the Green Bay Packers organization, no question. So why are those standards, when they're not being met, why are they not met with those drastic decisions?
However, I will say that, we are expecting we'll get him back, and we're looking forward to getting him back. I think we're
expecting to get him back. Something we don't know about? Does he not want to come back now?
Conversation this morning. I thought it was very productive. And, I think in the long run, although it's painful now, I think we're all going to be better for this moving forward.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Was the decision made just because of the coin toss, or was it more of a last straw and it's been an accumulation of things?
I'll just say this. It's never for one thing. But like I said, I think there's a lot of lessons along the way from everybody involved, and hopefully we learn from them. I think we will.
That's it. All right. That's all you need to hear. So, when asked if this was solely on the decision of the coin toss, LaFleur said, let's just say this, it's never just one thing. Well, that's BS. It's always just one thing. But he's saying it was an accumulation. So, Jaire Alexander, we know there's been some stories this season, especially within the last month. This was just the icing on the cake. So, he's been a nuisance, a problem for this coaching staff for a while. I get it. So take the head coach's words. It's never just one thing. It's an accumulation, and then we have to make a drastic decision, like a suspension. Okay, Joe Barry, it's an accumulation of a lot of really bad performances. So you need a spark. You say, well, BC, they can do no worse than just keeping Barry for the rest of the season. It's a 50-50 chance. You're not going to bring in somebody new or raise somebody up within the organization with just a couple games left. Yes, you are. That's how a spark works. That's how momentum is ignited. That's our best chance. Our best chance is anybody but Joe Barry running this defense. So don't feed the horse trash that they're trying to feed us. It's because they were embarrassed that they're taking out the star back with Justin Jefferson opposite of him Sunday night. It's because this staff was embarrassed. Because we shouldn't be getting that decision on a Wednesday afternoon when that was levied down, when they should be watching film and finding out who Joe Barry's replacement is for this week. So, in case you've been out of the loop, okay, to wind this upload down, we've ranted enough for now. To get you caught up on the loop, if you've been out of the loop, not only is Joe Barry still running this defense, this Sunday night you will be getting Joe Barry's defense, the same one that's the worst in the league this month. Not only will that be showing up with the season on the line Sunday night, but our star opposite of Justin Jefferson, Jaire Alexander, gone, suspended. So they found a way to take what's already worse. You can't say take what's bad and make it worse. They're taking what's worse, and they're finding a way to even implode that Sunday night. Tells you they're already looking to next year. They're already giving up for Sunday. As Packer fans, anybody in the Packer unit, anybody involved in the organization, anybody that sports these G's, we'll be watching Sunday night and hoping, hanging on a miracle, right? That's what we're going to do. We're not going to... Who knows? These games are wild. I've seen wild. I've seen the Panthers almost beat us last week. Anything can happen. But what the Packers are doing is they are setting themselves up to fail miserably Sunday night. They have put themselves in a perfect situation to embarrass themselves once again, embarrass themselves on a national stage. All right, that's it. Otherwise, we're just going to be running in circles with the same words. We'll see what they produce on Sunday night. I will be reviewing that game right here. Come right back to the channel. And even though it's New Year's Eve, there should be a window right after the game and before the ball drops where I can cut a review for you guys, because this is such an important game. It is. Win or lose, this is the season on the... This is it. As horrible as this season has been, after this week, we can all just take that deep sigh and just say, all right, that's it. Or somehow we win and we keep playing the calculation game. If this team loses and this team loses and we win that last game, maybe we're in. Can you imagine this Packer team in the playoffs? At least we made it, BC. Yeah, that's as far as we would go, but at least we want to get there, right? Anyway, guys, till next time, and there will be that next time. Top guys, we are out. BC saying check you. Salute.